Open Supply Hub. Why do we exist? What's this call all about? We're really trying to create a world where supply chain data is open, trusted, and harnessed to benefit people and planet. So really thinking about how do we move from this world where supply chain data is hindering progress, where it makes our lives harder, to one where it's enabling progress and how we can really make it work for us. And I think this won't be a surprise to anyone on this in this session that supply chain data has historically been really hard to find and really hard to work with. And specifically, when we talk about that at Open Supply Hub, there are some sort of specific areas that we're focused on. So to bring this to life a little bit, I want us to envision that we're working in a region of the world that sort of farms and produces both coffee and cocoa. And maybe there are a variety of different companies who are sourcing from that region. There are certification schemes certifying growers and producers in that region. There are civil society organizations running programs on the ground. There are service providers collecting data on what's happening there. And there are maybe some specific multi-stakeholder initiatives that are commodity specific, focused on cocoa, focused on coffee. And what you might find in this situation, what we're hearing and seeing across ecosystems and around the world is, one, that when all of those organizations try to collaborate, chances are, if they're talking about the same facility, they all have slightly different versions of how they refer to that facility, or maybe not slightly different versions in terms of the name and address and other data points that they might have. So when it comes time to figure out, okay, are we all working with the same facility or production site or farm, it's really hard to figure out, are we in fact talking about the same place? That data quality is so low. And then you might say, okay, well, a good solution to this would be IDs for all of these different production sites, these farms, these facilities. But the ID schemes that exist today have a few issues, and we're not trying to replace them at all at Open Supply Hub, but sort of talking about what we can do to sort of connect them and bring them together. We see ID schemes that are commodity specific, so specific to maybe one piece of work, one initiative that exist only within one specific service provider ecosystem, maybe are in only one sector or supply chain, or they're pay to play. And so what happens then is when all of those different stakeholders that I was talking about, maybe they're working together, they want to work together to prevent deforestation or improve social or environmental conditions in that region. When they try to compare their data sets, they have all this messy, differing data and different ID schemas, and it's really, really hard to make all of that data layer and play well together. It's kind of the left side of the slide that we're looking at. And then when we look at the data itself, everybody has like different slices of the pie, different data points, different even elements within those data points that they have access to. It's hard to know even who is working in the region, whether they have the data, what data they have, and then what kind of access there is to it. And so this leaves us in this place where, in this situation, if we're trying to figure out, okay, who are all the stakeholders working in this particular region, it's going to be incredibly difficult to comprehensively map sort of who those different stakeholders are, what data they have, and how they could start to work together. So that's kind of the context that we're playing in and the challenges that we're looking at in our work. And when we talk about sort of the power of open supply chain data, we really see it as enabling collective action, ultimately. The ability to work together to solve these massive issues that we're facing in supply chains, and that in many cases, legislation is pushing us to solve even faster. To get to a place where we can work collectively, where we have the data to even figure out who we might work with, we need, one, a trustworthy base data set that we can start with. That data set needs IDs that everyone can access, that run and decode across all of these different initiatives and platforms and tools that exist today. And that data needs to be open and accessible for everyone, so that anyone can see who's connected to which region or production site and can easily find each other to set up these collective action programs or collaborative initiatives. And so to bring that all together, we really believe that universal access to a map of global production sites and their relationships can unlock so many opportunities, and hopefully for those who are on this call. And that's really what our organization is trying to achieve, and what we'll try to show you today in our platform and through the work of our users. At a really basic level, if you're trying to understand what Open Supply Hub is, we're crowdsourcing supply chain data. So any organization that's connected to production sites can share data on our platform for free. We make that available for you to then search and download for free. And what we're showing are production locations around the world and who's connected to them, and then making it really easy to search and work with that data. And we'll show you that in a bit with a demo. So if we think about those challenges that I was talking about, there are 3 pillars to our model that hopefully can help bring that set of stakeholders together who are trying to fight deforestation in this region across commodity and at the landscape level together. So the first is, let's say all of those different stakeholders are sharing their data on Open Supply Hub, the brands who are sourcing from there, the certification schemes, even the suppliers, the farms, and factories themselves. And let's say in one case, they're all working with the same supplier and they all refer to that facility or farm in slightly different ways. Our platform is built on an algorithm that's trained to find those variations in the names and addresses of production sites and match them together, and then assign a free open industry standard ID that can sort of be used as a Rosetta Stone ID, decoding across all of these different systems and making it possible then for those stakeholders, if they are trying to connect about a production site, to say, this is the OSID for that site, are we talking about the same place? And trust that they are in fact talking about the same place. Then that sort of base reliable data set that's easy to connect with and sort of plays well with others lives in a public good. So it's openly accessible for anyone to share additional data, to search, to download, to make use of. And then because it's an open database, when you look at production sites in our platform, which we'll show in a little bit, you can see all of the organizations connected to those sites in some way. And so then whatever the intervention might be that you're trying to achieve, whether you're standing up collective grievance mechanisms, whether you're trying to fight deforestation in a particular region, it's really easy for you to find and figure out who your potential collaborators might be. And so that's sort of that last piece around enabling global collaboration. You can go to opensupplyhub.org. It's completely free for you to search, to share data, to download data. And I'll show you a few ways that you can search now and sort of what you can expect from the platform. So to start, if you know the name of a particular facility or production site that you want to look into, you can type it in here. Or if you already have OSIDs for your sites, you can type those OSIDs in as well. And so we can see that there's the facility pulls up there. We can see the name of this facility. We can see that universal ID for this facility. We can see a couple of sort of map views and thumbnails. Here's where it gets kind of fun. This is where you can see the work that our algorithm and data moderation team have done to match these different variations that exist for this facility's address. And same with the name. So you can imagine, yes, a lot of these, particularly in this case, are not terribly different, but depending on sort of the type of software that you're connecting or the data sets that you're connecting, you're at sort of high risk for creating duplicates if you have all of these different variations in different data sets. If we scroll down, you can see we have a very basic set of data points that we work with, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later. But the idea being that we're really trying to capture where is a production site and what are the basic operations there. And then most importantly, at the bottom of the page, we can see all of the organizations who are connected to this site in some way. And so again, whatever the intervention might be that you're trying to do at this site, you have a sense of some of the organizations that you might be able to work with or reach out to. So that's kind of at the particular facility level. Then let's say you've shared your data on Open Supply Hub. So let's say we're Amazon, for instance, and I'll pull up their list. They've shared over 2,000 production sites around the world. If you upload your data, it's really quick to come on and download your data set. You can do it into a CSV or Excel file. And that download will include all of those data points that we were just looking at, including all of the organizations who are connected to each of your suppliers. And then it's a very quick Excel manipulation to figure out who are you overlapping with the most, who are your sort of potential partners who you could work with. So that's kind of one tip if you're sharing your data on the tool. Then let's go a step further and say, okay, we're looking at multiple organizations, multiple supply chain data sets. So in this case, let's pull up John Lewis Partnership, who own Waitrose. And we'll start by just pulling up their data to illustrate 2,300 facilities. And let's say we're trying to figure out where they overlap with Marks and Spencer. Maybe we work at Waitrose and we want to work collaboratively with Marks and Spencer and figure out where supply chains overlap. So I'm going to start by searching both data sets. You can see 4,200 sites have been added between these two. And then I'm going to say, actually, I only want the sites that both of these contributors are connected to. So where do they overlap? And we can see that narrow to 198 results. For the sake of this webinar, we're focused on the food and beverage sector. So I'll filter the sector a little bit more and we'll get that down. Okay, we're at 109. Then maybe we're doing work focused on the UK. We narrow it further. Then maybe there's a particular area that we care about. We're doing a site visit, there's particular risk there, whatever it might be. You can draw that area and see the list continue to narrow. So now maybe if we're going into a meeting about collaboration between these two organizations, we have a list of sites that we can start with and start that conversation with. Similarly, we could do something like, and let's remove the UK as well. If you wanted to narrow it just to a particular region of the world, like already very zoomed out, you could draw that region, for instance. Anyway, I won't belabor that point. Then you can also see what we've looked at so far, a lot of sort of brand and retailer data. I think it's important to say as well that there are other types of organizations that are sharing data in our platform, and that was mentioned by some of our users as well. So you can see certification schemes here. You can see multi-stakeholder initiatives. There are some really fascinating data sets, the International Accord for Fire and Building Safety, for instance, sharing their data. So it's not just sort of brand and retailer data sets that you can overlap and compare. There are many others as well. A few other ways that you might want to search the tool, you can see some of the other data points that we have. If you're working in tea, for instance, you can search for tea as a product type, and you can see all of the sites that are connected to tea. I'll also quickly mention, when I pulled up the Marks and Spencer data, you can see that it says public list next to it. So that means that that's a publicly available data set that the Open Supply Hub team has found and added to the tool. We always encourage owners of that data to sort of take it over and keep it as up to date as possible. But there are so many rich public data sets out there that we want to be sure to be able to add those as well to ensure that you're getting the best data possible and as much sort of rich information about a landscape as possible. So for those who work in and are connected to palm oil, you can see a couple of the big public data sets that you're familiar with. They're already in the platform. Again, the spirit of this is not to replicate important work that's already happened, but to bring all of these different initiatives into one cross-commodity place. And then I saw a question about this in the Q&A, so I'll talk about it now in terms of how many tiers do we work with, how do we work with smallholder farms or farms in general. So I'll start by just showing if you are a company sharing multiple tiers of data, you have the ability to break out your data into different lists, and those lists can be divided up by tier, which many companies choose to do. So as you map deeper into your supply chain, you can add more tiers of data to the tool, as you can see here. We accept all tiers of the supply chain, so from farm level all the way up or down. And to talk about sort of smallholders in particular, the one limit to that is that because we're an open data set, we certainly do not want to publish people's sort of personal names and home addresses. And so that's data that we aren't currently accepting in the platform. There are many instances and sort of ways that different organizations are working around this with cooperatives or network nodes that can be used as identifiers in a public platform like this. So happy to talk that through with anyone who's sort of working on that data. And to the point that Shilpa was making when she's speaking, we want to build a data set together with all of our users that is going to serve you. And so as we work more with commodities and as deforestation regulation really takes hold, we want to be sure that we build a platform that serves everyone who's connected to supply chains, and that we can share farm data that will help everyone without sort of sacrificing the rights of the data holders. So an invitation to speak with us about that if that's something that you are interested in.